outside people. And I see the topic there, project preparation facility. The presenter of the day is Mr. Strover Maganedisa, whom I can assure you, colleagues, that he is a very experienced person in the PPP space. We are not going to waste time. We are going to hand over to Mr. Strover Maganedisa. What I would like to plead for, colleagues, is that let us take the questions right at the end of the presentation. If there is anything that probably that is burning within you whilst the presentation is taking place, we will take advantage of the chat within MS Teams, and then questions will be answered. So without further ado, over to you, Mr. Maganedisa.
Thanks a lot, Chairperson. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm going to take you through what we call project prep facility. Just waiting for my presentation to be flighted. Is it visible? If anyone can confirm before I proceed.
Yes, we can see it, Mr. Maganedisa.
Okay, thank you.
See it, thank you.
Do you want the video on or off? I don't know how you proceed.
Just make a normal presentation. If you want to video, it's up to you. We will leave it up to you. Okay.
No, I'm guided by the chairperson, but it's fine.
Okay.
So what I'm going to take you through is what we call the PPF, which is a project prep facility. It's something that is being promoted, ideally going to be institutionalized in the GTAC body. And we have seen the need for it, and as I'm taking you through the presentation, you'll see how it was conceptualized, what is our thinking. But at this point in time, it is something that it's on its process of being approved and being institutionalized. So we'll get to the presentation, giving the audience the context of the discussion. The National Development Plan identified investment in infrastructure as a key priority for government. And there is a large deficiency in public sector development and delivery. Also, there is an inadequate access to basic services, and also the supply side backlogs, bottlenecks also contribute to this public infrastructure development. And we have noted that there's a limited maintenance of existing infrastructure, and we are biased towards planning for construction of infrastructure with little regard to operations. And there's a rising pressure on the fiscals to fund more infrastructure. And how do we then prioritize which infrastructure is more important than the other? And then we're looking in terms of which infrastructure provides a better value for money, or we look in terms of prioritizing with regards to the allocative efficiency. And also, private financiers are seeking to invest in infrastructure opportunities. Now, with regards to the project prep, our focus area, what we conceptualize, is we're looking at the planning phase vis-a-vis the financing and the implementation, because once we can sort out the planning phase, I think the rest will follow suit like domino effects. So what we're looking at there is once the concept of a project has been identified, we need to define the need for the projects in terms of making sure that whatever it is identified conceptually, it's defined properly, and we can be able to have a project definition. Once we've done that, we move to the stage in terms of the pre-feasibility study. On the pre-feasibility study, we will then focus on preliminary analysis of the options that are available for us to be able to implement this project, the demand for that particular service. Sorry?
Just a little bit, Mr. Maganedisa. We're just having a plan. You are breaking. I don't know whether from your side, Anita, is there anything that you can do? We sort of like he's breaking and then we hear him and then we don't hear. Or okay, maybe is there anything that the guests should do maybe in order to make sure that it flies smoothly?
Let me check the strength of my connectivity in the meantime.
Okay.
Colleagues, on my side, I can hear clearly. There was no breakage. So okay, maybe colleagues must check their connectivity. Thanks, Gola.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Maganedisa. Go ahead. Okay.
Thank you. As I proceed, then I was talking in terms of the pre-feasibility study stage, where we look at how can we then preliminary assess the options that are available to implement the project, the demand for the project in terms of our citizens, and also look in terms of are there any socio-economic and environmental impacts that are associated of us implementing this project. And then we can be able to then zoom into the feasibility study stage, where we look in terms of the detailed costing of the project itself, meaning looking at the funding of the project from the fiscus or from the users.
Apologies, colleagues. Strover, it is breaking on my side. I wouldn't want the colleagues to miss what you're saying. So maybe if you could just maybe check your connectivity. I'm also getting an in and out now. But maybe on your side, Tola, is it much better?
Yeah, it also breaking, but I can see. But let's try again. Yeah.
Okay, let me move from my position. Let me move from my position. Maybe probably go into another different position.
Okay.
Where the Wi-Fi is more strong.
Okay. Okay, let's try again. Yeah.
Okay, let me try again. Okay. As I was saying, when we look at the feasibility study stage, we're going to be focusing more closely in terms of a detailed costing, where we look at how is the project going to be funded, either through fiscus or user pay. And then we look in terms of the benefit analysis study that then looks at the micro and the macro impact on the particular project site and in terms of that. And then once we've sorted out that one, I think the financing and the implementation could be much, much easier. But there are many challenges with regards to this. And what we have identified is that there's an inadequate capacity and expertise that reside within departments, entities also that have this expertise that we require. And also there's an inability to plan, to develop and procure and oversee the project from their throughout their entire value chain. And we have noticed that there's weak planning capacity to seamlessly translate strategic objective into concrete project ideas. And also we identify that there's weak institutional arrangements to support effective portfolio management system, processes to enable proper appraisal and prioritization of projects having considered trade-offs. And the outcomes thereof, its lack of a coherent and a credible portfolio of projects that are investment ready, and if insufficient leverage of private sector financing and a slow implementation of projects and project delays. And how does a project prep facility help? So what we intend to do is having an intervention intended to augment project owners' efforts by developing specialist technical expertise to develop projects to an investment-ready state. It is a short to medium-term response that can rapidly assist with the development of prioritized projects, and we are able to centralize capacity and expertise with a view to develop efficiency systems and processes that can be replicated by project owners elsewhere. But this is not the all-in solution. And the approach that we are intending to use is to collaborate with other stakeholders in and out of government. And it doesn't mean that we are going to replace the existing project prep units which are available in government and also in private sector. And we're looking at a bespoke intervention based on the needs of a project owner. So we won't be coming up with our own ideas. We want to assist project owners with regards to their own objective or their own project to fulfill their mandate. And what does a project prep in our mind going to offer? What we're offering is we want to have a project prep fund, which is a resource that is made available either through finance or funding, or probably either through a resource which is a person that can be able to assist the project owner, and that they should work in cooperation with departments, either in a project or in a program support initiative. And their role will be to prepare and develop projects so that it can be submitted either to Treasury or to the market for implementation. And equal to that, we expect to provide technical assistance, which is a resource and a process support program to assist the department. And the project owners are going to be able to obtain support from us. And then we're going to be providing some capacity building. And once the institution accepts our proposal, then we're going to institutionalize that process in terms of their project preparation, and we're going to help them in terms of having a project appraisal process that has gate approvals so that project can proceed and be funded. And eventually, out of that process, we're going to be centered into a center of excellence, where there's knowledge management that's going to be part and parcel of the service offering, monitoring and evaluation, and also process and systems inclusive of the IDMS process. And we're going to be able to develop tools and methodologies that can be distributed to other departments in terms of them implementing this further. And it is critical for us to know when to intervene and how to intervene, and with less cost. So our intervention is mirrored in terms of how much influence we can have, because at the initial stage, in terms of the preparation, it's absolutely important that we intervene and influence the project development at the preparatory stage. And if we intervene at the implementation stage, our efforts or impact will be negligible. And when we intervene also at the initial stages in terms of the project feasibility study and project conceptual process, then our costs would be in barely less than 3% of the total project value. But when we do have to intervene at the later stage in implementation, we might end up replacing the entire asset or infrastructure that has been developed. But it's ideal for us. Our intervention should be effectively when we intervene at the early stages where our influences are high. And our modus operandi or our modus operation in this regard, we have developed a 7-stage or 7-step process where we say the first step would be the application of support that you need. So our application may come from different sources, may come from the project sponsor, may come from the BFI, may come from the Presidential Infrastructure Coordination Committee or National Treasury itself. And the next step that we envisage that we're going to be doing is we're going to conduct a project screening process where the Secretariat of the PPF are going to screen the project in terms of our criteria, our relevance, our options, and our intervention. And once that is done, it's step 3, which you're going to evaluate and approve the project based on a due diligence and presentation to the steering committee that has been appointed already. And then once that has been done, we start our due diligence process and approval in terms of what support are we going to be doing and how are we going to offer that support through the steering committee. And step 5, the project owner is expected to sign a support agreement outlining the stages and the requirements and what is it that we're going to be granted in the services. And once that has been done, we move to step 6, which is project support, then commences, and then we are able to reach the investment ready level that we inspire. And once that has been done, we do your periodic review of the effectiveness of the support and the monitoring. Who does what with regards to the PPF? NT provides the mandate and oversees the project prep led by other organs of state, and GTAC is expected to handhold the project owners, institutionalize good practices, and provide capacity building. And then the PICC is the one that prioritizes the projects that we're working on as outlined in the National Infrastructure Program and reduces regulatory bottlenecks or hurdles that may be identified. And then DBSA will then assist in terms of running the secretariat, program design, and program support. And non-government players, which are the financiers and the technical advisors, they will be observers to ensure alignment with their compliance requirement, because if a project needs financiers, they'll be able to assist us in terms of coming up with bankability requirements. And the technical advisors are the appointed consultants that we will be procuring, which are specialist skills and expertise that can be assisting the project owners. And the project owners will be the accountable entity for the projects and be able to sign the facility agreement. The steps that we envisage taking forward is awaiting funding condition before finalizing the business case, which we are developing the business case. And then we are looking in terms of constituting some governance structures with other government structures in terms of managing the project prep, and conclude the support guidelines that it's going to be distributed to the project owners, and also solicit government clear commitments in terms of how can they assist us in developing projects, and identify projects that are going to be supported in this regard. And in conclusion, probably come up with a model of sustainability with regards to once the funding from National Treasury is approved, then we can be able to create the project prep as a self-funding program within the GTAC. Chairperson, I'll hand over to you. That is my end of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Strover. I think Anita, maybe this presentation, I think I can see now that it is recorded and that people will have access to it, because at some stage the network was sort of like difficult. Sometimes he breaks. I don't know from other colleagues, but at this time round, maybe let me just hand over to the colleagues to ask questions if there are any questions for Mr. Maganedisa. Even though the slides were 10, but there was quite a lot of information there that is important for projects. So there's quite a lot that is said about this project preparation facility, about the planning phases, the financing phases, the implementation, the 7-step process, who is involved, National Treasury, GTAC, PICC, DBSA. So you can see that there is quite a lot of effort to ensure that infrastructure projects are being implemented. So there's quite a lot, a mouthful that Mr. Maganedisa has just presented. So let me just hand over to you now, colleagues, for questions. Okay, thanks, Mr. Klaas. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just two thanks, Strover. Very interesting and welcoming presentation and initiative at National. Just two questions from my side. Is there a narrative document that we can maybe study in a bit more detail? And then second is just on time frames, from when will the PPF be in place? Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus, for the question. Through you, Chairperson. There is a narrative, as indicated in my presentation, that we are going to develop some distribution guidelines or process that we are going to make available, and that is, we are going to be able to do that once the Treasury has signed it off, giving us permission to proceed. And that links to the second question, which is the timeline. The timeline is we are waiting for Treasury to sign it off and make the budget available. The money has been allocated, but the signing off has not been. So once we receive that sign off from Treasury, we can be able to implement it immediately. I can put my head on the block to say in the next coming couple of weeks, we will be fully operational. So, but subject to Treasury approving everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Strover. Are there any other questions? You can hear that there is quite a lot of effort that is being put. I heard even, for instance, that the steering committee has already been appointed. That shows that things are moving. Ompile, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks for an interesting presentation. I wanted to ask, what kind of infrastructure projects will be funded? I think I might have missed it at the start. That's one question. And then in your 7-step process, from the time you vet the applicants till stage 7, do you have a time frame in terms of how long that vetting process would take?
Peter, I don't know whether Strover has heard you. Also, it looks like the network is difficult. I'm not so sure. I have not heard you. I do not know whether maybe Strover heard you. And also, colleagues, I don't know. Yes. Just move around a little.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Oh, so I wanted to ask.
Yes.
So the first question
I heard your question.
No.
Yes, I've heard you.
Did you hear both?
I can
Did you hear both
respond.
of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Both of them. Okay.
All right.
On our guide comes from the National Development Plan in terms of the sectors that we focus on. And just to name a few, we're looking at water, energy, transport. I think probably on roads, and so our guidelines is we are limited. We projects which are identified under the sectors which are identified under the National Development Plan, we focus on, even broadband. So we're not only operating with new targets, but we're operating on the existing sectors. In terms of our vetting process, the steering committee that is in place, we are meeting monthly, presenting new projects in terms of them approving the project. So it's a monthly cycle where we make decisions to say, are we funding this project? Are we not funding? And most of the projects that we are vetting, they are already in the pipeline, meaning that they have been submitted to National Treasury already for funding. However, the development of those particular projects are not in the state or in the format that Treasury wants to fund them. They want to be developed further. So they are not new projects that we're working on. These are existing projects that are already in Treasury for approval. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Strover. Maybe before I go to Onyango, I think I saw Lerato. I don't know whether maybe I saw your hand and then you withdrew. Do you want to go ahead before before Onyango Donald from GPT goes ahead?
That's fine. I withdrew, but my question was around the criteria that was referred to once applications are received. You said you evaluate them against the criteria. I just wanted to find out where can we get information about that criteria. Thank you.
Over to you, Mr. Maganedisa.
In terms of the criteria, there are two processes that we look into. There is under the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Committee, there are strategic projects under the President that has been identified. Most of the projects that are listed there, once we're using their criteria to onboard projects on our site. And then with regards to the BFI, we're using the BFI criteria to onboard the projects. And with regards to Treasury, we will be using a project that's already it's submitted to Treasury either under IGR or under public finance to be able to be funded, but they refer projects to us to say they are not developed at a stage that we want to fund because they are not investment ready. Can you be able to develop it? So there are institutional criteria that we are not coming up with our own criteria. Once the project is aligned to your department's strategic objective and you can demonstrate that, then we can be able to onboard the projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Strover. Onyango from GPT. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Strover, for your presentation, which is very insightful. Now, one of the things that we as treasuries normally have to contend with is the funding of the project preparation facility. Because for a project to be bankable and to get financing, or for a project to be bankable so that it can be implemented through a PPP, then it is something which has to talk to the financiers. It has to meet the criteria, the cost-benefit analysis, the impact studies, and the like. But my question is, normally the projects, I would say, are almost limitless. And if they have to be prepared, if you have to undertake preparation for a project in order to make it bankable, then you need funding from a project preparation facility. But what happens then if, fine, you've managed to package a project to the point where it can be engaged on for feasibility of funding, and then the project is not, it doesn't meet the criteria for funding, let me put it that way, or there's no appetite for funding. So is all that money that goes into project preparation, money down the drain? Because that's a thing that, you have to deal with, because everybody has lots of projects that they have good ideas on, but they need to be packaged. And so you spend money on this, and then what happens thereafter if the projects do not progress beyond pre-feasibility, for argument's sake? Thanks.
Okay. Over to you, Mr. Maganedisa.
I think on my slide, I did allude to the fact that when you look at a project value chain, if you are spending less than 3% of the total project value, and the decision not to continue with the project is taken at that stage, your loss is minimal compared to the fact that if you went ahead and spent more or less 15 to 20% of the money, and the project still it doesn't address the need. So we're trying to strengthen the project preparation so that we have less white elephants that are not servicing the need out there. Because when you look back and you find out that you have already incurred capex costs, but what you've constructed, it's not in line to the need, or it's not servicing anyone, then your costs are huge and your loss is higher in that regard. So it is preferred that you intervene at the earlier stage than at the later stage. I think I've summed it up, my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Strover. I think what we hear there is that project preparation is still a better way to go than to spend all the way down and then you end up it costing you. So at least you might even have some alternatives. I guess that maybe that's what Strover is. It's probably not ready for PPP, or maybe it can be done either way, but you would have had all the information at your disposal. So I think what I heard there in summary is the importance of doing those pre-feasibility to get to answer to what you, Onyango, is saying. Are there any other questions?
Paula, I don't know if you had a chance, but there are some questions in the chat.
Okay.
That maybe you can have a look at.
Okay, let's go to the chart. Okay, it looks like there was an experience of the internet challenge. Really struggled to listen. I'm just looking at the question.
No problem. I see Katlego asked about guidelines.
Okay.
She said, what guidelines does the PPF use to advise the pre-feasibility methodology, entities, infrastructure appraisal and evaluation guideline? Are they others? So that was the one question.
Okay. The other one, it says, you mentioned that the PPF is looking to be housed in GTAC. What is the rationale for this and what is the timeline for the institutionalization? I don't know whether you have got answers to that, Strover, on the chat box.
Yes, with regards to the guidelines, we are in a process of developing guidelines, and at the moment, most of the business plan, the process, and also the guidelines and the methodology, it's not yet distributed based on the fact that we need an approval process first before we disseminate information. But we are in the process of developing that. How does that link up with the existing evaluation criteria and appraisal within NT and also within GTAC? The aim is not to replicate what is there, but is to find a way in terms of how do we link up these processes to support each other. And if there is good practices out there, we're going to incorporate that. I mean, as I indicated, the IDMS process also is going to be incorporated into this. And also the appraisal and evaluation guidelines also is going to be part and parcel of this, because those are National Treasury's guidelines that we cannot ignore. So that is going to be part and parcel of that. How do we differ with with the PPF or project preparation facility of the DBSA, the DBSA only focuses on projects that are going to raise finance through the open market, maybe the commercial bank, including the DBSA. They do not look in terms of projects that are going to, not that they don't look at them, but they are not dominant in projects that are funded by the fiscus. So there is a gap between the projects that are funded by the fiscus purely in terms of them being developed to the level of investment ready. So we are closing that gap. And Kola, you said the other question was to say?
The other question, I don't know, it says, what is the, you mentioned that the PPF is looking to be housed in GTAC. What is the rationale for this and what is the timeline for the institutionalization? I think maybe the last part of the timeline for institutionalization, I think I heard you saying that if there's a sign off and then you'll go ahead, there will be a going ahead. But I think the person wants to know what is the rationale for this being housed in GTAC. I don't know that maybe it's a strategic decision taken somewhere or you have the answer for this one.
The rationale to be housed in GTAC, I don't think probably it's something that it's ideal to be housed in GTAC. However, each and every department has to have their own planning, project appraisal and approval system within the department. And we expect through the MFMA and the PFMA accounting officers to make available budget for planning. But however, the rate of rejection in terms of projects that are not funded in any other program is so high that the departments are not prioritizing the planning phase. So when we say we're going to institutionalize it, we are institutionalizing it in the departments, but we are creating the Center of Excellence in GTAC so that we can be able to assist departments like Department of Water and Sanitation to be able to have their own planning and project development unit up and ready. And we're also doing the same thing with municipalities. So it is, I don't know if I've captured it properly, because the aim is to department to submit projects that are project ready and be able to solicit funding. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Strover. I think, Katlego, I see your hand.
Yes, I answered Strover. Thank you. The last question is, where in GTAC will the PPF sit?
To be honest with you, I don't know at the moment.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you, Strover.
Thank you. Colleagues, are there any other questions? I don't see the questions. Anita, from your side, before I conclude and close, is there anything from your side as our host? Anita?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kola. No, I also don't see any questions. Thank you, colleagues. All the information will be shared on our Knowledge Hub. I've put both the link in the chat as well as a quick survey to give us feedback. Enjoy your afternoon further. Thank you, Kola. Thank you, Strover.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
colleagues.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maganedisa. Thank you, everyone, for attending. As you can see, all these webinars are very educational. I'm impressed by the numbers. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a great weekend too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.